Could it be? But me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the Command Post. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am your Commander-in-Chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. So, we are closing in on the finale of the Command Core, where we go over every position for the Washington Commanders heading into the 2025 training camp portion of their offseason as things start to really rev up, heading towards the preseason, giving us a real in-depth look at what this roster looks like going into training camp. 90 guys, where we kind of shape up with the rest of the league. Tight end position is a really interesting position, to say the least. It's not one of our stronger positions on the roster, but we got a lot of production out of this group last year, mainly Zach Ertz. And to ask a 35-year-old tight end to duplicate what he did a season ago is a big ask. And I don't know if it's something that we should feel comfortable doing. I know a lot of us felt like they needed to do something this offseason at tight end. And they did something last offseason. So I told you guys, don't look for anything this offseason. And they didn't do anything this offseason. So Ben Sinnott was supposed to be the guy. His situation is a lot like Jordan McGee's last year, other than Sinnott wasn't hurt. He was healthy the entire year, and Ertz just played so well that there was nothing other than to block for Ben Sinnott to really do last year. They just were so comfortable with Ertz and his production, and he was consistent throughout the year that they didn't need Sinnott really for anything else other than the block. And they still have a premier blocking tight end in John Bates. So that pushed Sinnott all the way down to third string tight end, essentially. So we're kind of in the same position, in the same predicament this year. I think this is the last year we'll find ourselves here. You know, I was looking at the ESPN, top 10 tight ends list, and I got a little jealous. I'm not going to lie. You start looking around the league and you see all these athletic freaks at the tight end position, all these guys that can change the game, who can take a, 6 to 10 yard seam ball and take it, 45 yards, or can get behind the safety and stretch the field vertically. We just don't have that. There's not a lot of yards after the catch with our guys. And again, Sinnott can be that, right? He just wasn't that in his rookie season. But that doesn't mean he's not capable. He was one of the more athletically gifted tight ends in his draft class, if you recall. So I'm not closing the door on Ben Sinnott. A lot of you want to see it this year, or you're not going to believe in Ben Sinnott and you're going to start using the B word. I'm not there yet. I think the kid is just fine, but you would like to see more out of him this year. So with that said, let's take a look at the tight end position for the Commanders. And before we, really dive into the 2025 group, as you can see in front of you, 7 names, let's look at what they did last year. One of the biggest surprises coming out of the preseason last year, when this roster was finalized in late August, was the, emergence of Colson Yankoff. Nobody, and I mean nobody, had Colson Yankoff making the final 53-man roster last year. But that he did. And I think we were in a position last year with the first year of this rebuild, or excuse me, recalibration. Let me get my vernacular correct. They had the space on the roster to do this, right? We weren't talented enough that if they wanted to keep a guy that they liked as an undrafted, you could do that in year one, right? There was enough space on the back end of the roster to do so. There was no one. Hell, at the end of the preseason last year, we had Byron Pringle as one of our wide receivers. Like, we didn't have a ton of talent. We still don't, but we're trending in the right direction now. We're not in the same position we were in last year. And as a matter of fact, I've talked about the linebacker position, and I think I have it figured out now, right? I talked about the linebacker position in the last episode. We talked about them yesterday. And I said they're keeping 6. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. If everyone's healthy leaving, training camp in the preseason, they're keeping 6 linebackers because they drafted Kane Madrano. You still got He's in addition to Madrano, you got Wagner and Louie back, your two all-pro linebackers. You've got Nick Ballore and you've got Dominique Hampton, right? So you've got six guys that are going to be on this roster at the linebacker position rather, no questions asked. So with that said, and Jordan McGee, excuse me, I don't want to leave him out. He's such a big part of that linebacking group this year. And so that's six linebackers. They only had five last year. So that means they're going to have to trim off fat somewhere to add in the extra backer. And I think this is the position you go directly to if you want that extra backer, because essentially Colson Yankoff was a surprise last year, but all they used him for was special teams. He wasn't on the field offensively for this team last season. He was all special teams. So Colson Yankoff is not a guy you have to have on this roster. No one's going to fight you for Colson Yankoff. You can cut him and put him on your practice squad, which I see them doing this year to open up the roster spot, because essentially you're saying, Kay Madrano, can you do what Colson Yankoff did last year? If the answer is yes, Colson Yankoff, you're gone. You're on the practice squad. All right, Kay Madrano, you take his spot on special teams and you do the things that Colson Yankoff did for this team on special teams last year. If the answer is no, then Colson Yankoff remains and Kay Madrano gets the axe. They're not going to cut Kay Madrano. He's a draft pick. Colson Yankoff, not a draft pick. So Kay Madrano's making this team, and if he can fill the Colson Yankoff role, he is going to be on this roster, and I think Yankoff is going to be the odd man out. With that said, let's look at the group of tight ends this year. They kept four last year. I think the number this year is three. And so we know who the three are. Again, assuming health, Zach Ertz, John Bates, Ben Sinnott. You've got a guy that had a resurgence last year in Zach Ertz. You had a tight end, have a tight end in John Bates who got a 3-year contract this offseason. Good for John Bates, one of the best, if not the best, blocking tight end in all of the National Football League. So at least, one of the Rivera picks panned out and actually is worth a damn, along with Sam Cosmi. Don't have many that we can say actually panned out in the new group, actually like them, but those are the two that got extensions here from the last regime. And Ben Sinnott is a guy that they drafted last year. Again, played a ton for this team, just didn't have a lot in the way of, statistical production. 5 catches, 27 yards, 1 touchdown, that being against the Carolina Panthers. So we're looking for a big year from Ben Sinnott. But who else is here, right? Who else is going to be here in the preseason and in training camp? So the aforementioned Colson Yankoff, undrafted out of UCLA a season ago, a guy that, kind of burst onto the scene last year, was excellent on special teams, but we still don't really know what Colson Yankoff, the athlete, looks like and what he can provide as an offensive weapon. We know he's athletically gifted, but I think he's going to be interesting to watch this preseason. Same could be said for Tyree Jackson, another guy that I am very intrigued by, former quarterback at the University of Buffalo, has made the transition to tight end over the last couple of years. And at 6'7", 250, I think he's finally comfortable playing the position. Now, what does he look like? He's an athlete. He always was even when he was playing the quarterback position. So he's another guy that I'm really intrigued by. Cole Turner, I think we know what he is at this point. Not that he can't get better. I don't know if we'll ever get what we thought we were getting out of Cole Turner. I think that ship has sailed, but Cole Turner is still hanging around. Lawrence Cager, that's a guy that he's a little bit further in his transition from wide receiver to tight end. I think this is his second year doing this. I'm not a big Lawrence Cager fan. I think he's got a long way to go in his development. He doesn't really, to me, factor into this discussion. But again, we'll see. I could be absolutely wrong and off base about Lawrence Cager, and he could be a better tight end right now than Tyree Jackson, for all I know. I doubt that seriously. We'll see. But really, this is all about Colson Yankoff, Ben Sinnott, Zach Ertz, and John Bates. Those are the 4 guys that were on the roster last year. We know 3 of them are going to be here. Can Yankoff stake his claim to remain a part of the 53-man roster? He's not going anywhere. He'll be on the practice squad at worst case. But can any other tight ends enter their name into the hat Can Tyree Jackson make a little noise and make things interesting? Can Cole Turner finally say, hey, here's what I am, and finally provide something? Again, doesn't feel like this tight end room is going to have much movement. I think this is one of the more stale positions on the roster. Not really a lot to get excited about. And I don't think it's one of the better groups in the NFL. With that said, let's have a discussion now about where these tight ends rank amongst the division, conference, and then finally the league. So in the NFC East, it's a really interesting discussion because I'm listening to all the teams in the division kind of talk about where they think their tight end group ranks. But I think we have the best tight end room in the NFC East. It feels a little crazy to say, but Zach Ertz had the most receiving yards last year. He's the most veteran of the group. He's the guy that we trust to get open, even more so than Dallas Goedert. I'll take Zach Ertz at his ripe old age over Dallas Goedert because even with that said, Ertz is a guy that I think is more reliable than Goedert. We know at some point Goedert's going to get hurt. Every year, Goedert gets hurt, misses, 4 to 6 weeks, whatever the case may be. I think you're more reliable with Ertz. You know Ertz is going to win in the red zone. Ertz is going to win on third downs. Ertz is going to win on fourth down. Ertz had more yards receiving than him last year. I'll take Zach Ertz. And nobody has a better run blocking tight end in the division than John Bates. So at a bare minimum, we go too deep with one guy being a receiver specialist, the other guy being a blocking specialist, and then you still got Ben Sinnott, right? So I'll take our guys over the rest of the division's tight end. So we're number one. That's about as good as it gets because after this, it's all downhill from there. So you look at the conference rank, and this is yeah. So Chicago's tight ends, I think, might be the best in the league. Okay, them and the Raiders. I think those are the two best tight end rooms in all of football. So the Bears, obviously, the Lions take Sam Laporta over any tight end on our roster right now, no questions asked. And they have another guy that can block just as well as John Bates and Brock, right, on their roster. So Detroit's better. Green Bay has a wealth of talent at the tight end position. Their top two tight ends are better than anything we have from a pass catching standpoint. Atlanta, even though there's a lot of flaws in Kyle Pitts' game, I'd still take Kyle Pitts in a hurry, especially with Jaden Daniels at quarterback. And that kind of athleticism, you can do some things with that. So, and they have a good blocking tight end there as well, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So I take Atlanta. Carolina has some talent there. They just drafted the kid out of Texas last year, Sanders, Jatavian Sanders. They still have the Notre Dame tight end there. They got stuff. I like their tight ends. So Carolina, I take them over ours. New Orleans, and that was debatable. I'll take New Orleans tight ends over ours, but it's close. I could easily take our tight ends over New Orleans, but I'm a big Jawan Johnson fan, and I think that the LSU tight end that they have via the Raiders is a really good tight end that I like. And they still have Taysom Hill, even though he's injured, as a tight end on their roster as well. So I take New Orleans over our tight ends right now. Tampa Bay has a really good group of tight ends, man. Good athleticism. They all block. They got a really good group of tight ends in Tampa Bay. Take them over us. Arizona has arguably the best tight end in the entire league. Obviously, that was a guy that a lot of you guys liked about 2-3 years ago now, I think it was in the draft, that people were like, we got to take this guy. We got to take this guy. And we didn't. He ends up in Arizona, and now he is a stud. I don't know why his name is escaping me right now, but damn, he's good. He had a breakout year last year, and he solidified himself as one of the best tight ends in football. The Rams have a really good group of tight ends as well, and I think they just drafted another young tight end. Matter of fact, my favorite tight end in this past year's draft, the tight end out of Oregon, they drafted him. So yeah, the Rams, I'll take their tight ends. San Francisco has George Kittle, need I say more, and they have a really good blocking tight end, I think, in Dwelly. In Seattle, they got some really solid tight ends. They drafted another tight end that I liked in this past year's draft out of Miami, and they still have George or Noah Fant at tight end as well. So I'd take their tight ends over ours. That puts us at 12th in the conference, and you could easily make a case. I'm listening for the Minnesota Vikings because they have T.J. Hockenson. I so abhor the rest of their tight end room that I'll take ours over theirs because just T.J. Hockenson, especially having dealt with an injury just 2 years ago, it's just not enough for me. If they just had one guy that I liked outside, like just remotely liked, I'd put them ahead of us too, and we'd be 13th in the conference, which would mean if Minnesota was ahead of us, which would mean the only teams that weren't ahead of us were the 3 teams in our division. That's that's how rough it is for our tight end group. Again, it's just stale. It's a stale piece of gum. Our group but they get the job done. You won't get too many complaints out of me. I just know what we are, right? You expand it to the league, and it's not getting much better here. Buffalo, again, another one of these tight end rooms that's among the most talented in the league. I'd put Buffalo up there with Chicago and Vegas in terms of the best tight end rooms in the league. They got a two-headed monster in Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid that not many teams can touch those two. Baltimore, same deal, right? They got Isaiah Likely. They got Mark Andrews, again, another two-headed monster. Who's touching that, right? Not us, obviously. Cincinnati, they got a plethora of tight ends that I like, but they have the Penn State tight end, Mike Gesicki, who leads the charge there. And they have some other guys that fill in the gaps behind him that are really talented that I like as well. Tanner Hudson, some other guys. They're better than us. Cleveland obviously has David Njoku, and they just drafted Harold Fannin Jr. this year out of Bowling Green. That's going to be a two-headed monster that you don't want to deal with. They're better than us. The Steelers just traded for a tight end from Miami just very recently, like as recent as last week. They already had Pat Freiermuth, and they had Darnell Washington, as if they needed any more tight ends. So they're loaded at the tight end position, which they're way better than us. Houston, they're better than us. They have a good plethora of tight ends. They took the cornbread tight end out of Ohio State last year, and then they already had the Dalton Schultz. So they're better than us. Kansas City still has Travis Kelce, right? And then they took one of my tight ends last year in the draft, Wiley, who I loved. And they got just a bunch of guys that are really good. Noah Gray, the Chiefs are loaded. And then I already talked about the Raiders like 5 times already. Brock Bowers is insane, right? Got off to like a Hall of Fame start in his rookie season. And they had Michael Mayer already from Notre Dame. And yeah, they're good at the tight end position. So, and again, if I'm listening, if you want to bring up Indy and the Jets, I'm listening, like really listening. Like the Jets just drafted Mason Taylor, Jason Taylor's son out of LSU. He's a rookie. Don't know what he's going to do, but I like him. And he could easily be better than anything we have. And then the Colts drafted Tyler Warren. So again, like him a lot. He could easily be better than anything we have. And just like that, those two could be, you could talk me into putting those two in, but because there's no body of work there, I'm reluctant to just put them ahead of us, but I'm listening because right now we're 21st in the league at the tight end position. You could easily talk me into Minnesota, the Jets, and the Colts being ahead of us. That would put us at 25th in the league. So, like I said, our tight end room to me is underwhelming, right? But they get the job done, right? It's like that old screwdriver. It looks like shit. The flat head on it is worn down. But guess what? It fits into every damn socket. It fits into every damn screw, and it gets the job done. It's old reliable. I don't have any issues. It's just not flashy, right? You got the 1999 Honda Civic. It works. Your Honda Accord from 2002, it works. Yeah, it's got 249,000 miles on it, but guess what? This shit runs. Who's complaining? It gets you from point A to point B. No, you don't have the flashy car with the tinted windows and the rims, but just like those flashy cars can get you from point A to point B, our 2002 Honda Civic can do the same exact thing. Our 2002 Honda Accord can do the same thing. It's not flashy. It's not fast. But I was once told slow and steady wins the race. That's our tight end group. Slow and steady. So, look, I'll take my Zach Ertz on third, fourth, and in the red zone. I'll take my Zach Ertz. I'll take my John Bates on 4th and 1 to block the shit out of somebody and make sure we get the first down. I'll take my guys. What? I take a lot of other teams' guys over ours as well. So that's the tight end position for me. Your man, Louie T. Tell me what you think. Leave it down in the comment section. Big year for Ben Sinnott, I believe. Or I shouldn't say big year, just he's going to show why he was a second-round pick, I believe, this year. He's going to show enough flashes that he's going to get people off of his back. But if that doesn't occur, we got to do something about it next year. But we'll see what happens this year. It's a position group that it doesn't get you excited, but they get the job done. And that's all I care about. So leave it down in the comment section. What do you think about this tight end group? Where do you have them ranked? Am I being too harsh? Am I being too nice? You tell me. But that's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. You know what it is. Post up. Hold on. I got to get this right. Take command. You guys have a good one. Take care. And we will wrap this series up tomorrow night live when we will talk about one of the most volatile positions on this roster, the safety position. Saved the best conversation potentially for last. So we'll do that tomorrow night. Commanders Kings tonight should be a lot of fun. We'll talk about the Terry situation among other topics regarding the Commanders. So I look forward to chopping it up with you tonight with the fellas, and then tomorrow solo for Dolo as we wrap up this Command Core series prior to the rookies reporting to training camp. I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. Until next time, you guys have a good one. Peace. LouieTeeNetwork.